Hello everyone. Today, we talk about Pope Francis's death and funeral. Pope Francis, the first Latin American leader of the Roman Catholic Church, died on Easter Monday, aged 88. Goodbye to the leader. The world was sad on April 21, 2025. Pope Francis died. He was old, 88 years old. He was the Pope for a long time. Many people everywhere knew him and were sad when they heard he had died. He was the 266th Pope. His death was the end of an important time for his church. The Vatican said he died following a stroke, less than 24 hours after appearing in a wheelchair at St. Peter's Square to lead an Easter address in front of thousands of worshippers. During his final public appearance on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica on Easter Sunday, Francis spoke briefly, but did not recite a full blessing, instead inviting an archbishop to do so on his behalf. Even so, his appearance on a key day in the Catholic calendar was celebrated by worshippers. In the hours after his death was confirmed, tributes poured in from around the globe. The acting head of the Church of England, the Archbishop of York, described him as a holy man of God, who was also very human. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni praised the Pope as a great man, and said she had the privilege of enjoying his friendship, advice and teachings. King Charles III, who met with the Pope privately in early April during his state visit to Italy, said in a statement that he was deeply saddened to hear of the Pope's death and praised his tireless commitment. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer shared his condolences to the whole of the Catholic Church and called the pontiff a pope for the poor, the downtrodden and the forgotten. US President Donald Trump wrote on social media, "Rest in peace, Pope Francis. May God bless him and all who loved him." The Pope's death follows a period of ill health that saw him spend 5 weeks in hospital with double pneumonia. Services have been held around the world as some 1.4 billion Catholics begin to mark the Pope's death. Meanwhile, mourners arrived at the Vatican. The funeral was planned for April 26, just a few days after he died. This gave people time to get ready and go to Rome if they wanted to. Who was Pope Francis? Pope Francis was the 266th Pope. He was from Argentina, and was the first pope from South America. Before becoming pope, his name was Jorge Mario Bergoglio. He chose the name Francis after Saint Francis of Assisi, who loved poor people and nature. Pope Francis also cared deeply for the poor. He lived simply and often visited those in need. Pope Francis led the Catholic Church for more than 10 years. During his time as pope, he traveled to many countries. He met leaders and regular people. He talked about peace and understanding between different groups. He also asked people to take better care of the earth. He wrote important letters about these things. He tried to make the church feel more open and welcoming. Pope Francis also loved Mary, the mother of Jesus, very much. Mary is very important in his religion. He often prayed to her for help. He believed she helped him in his life and work as Pope. This strong connection to Mary was also why he chose a special place to be buried. A special burial place. Pope Francis had a special idea for where he wanted to be buried. Most popes are buried inside Vatican City. But Pope Francis wanted something different. He asked to be buried outside the walls of Vatican City. This was what he wanted, and it showed how he was different from many popes before him. He chose a very old and beautiful church in Rome to be buried in. This church is called the Basilica of Saint Mary Major. It is not inside Vatican City. It is in the center of Rome. A pope choosing this church was not common. Why did he choose Saint Mary Major? Pope Francis loved Mary, the mother of Jesus, very much. He often went to this church to pray quietly. He felt very close to Mary in this special place. He even wrote about this in his plans for 2022. He said he had always trusted Mary in his life, and had worked in the Basilica of St. Mary Major. In this church, there is a very old and important picture of Mary. It is called Salus Populi Romani. This means health of the Roman people. It is a famous picture. Many people believe St. Luke painted it a very long time ago. This picture is also very important to the Jesuits, the group of priests Pope Francis belonged to. So, this picture and the church were very special to him. Pope Francis lived a simple life, helping poor people. He wanted his final resting place to be like his life. He asked for a simple grave. He wanted it to be on the ground, not high up, or with many decorations. He did not want a big statue. He only wanted one word written on his grave, Franciscus. This is his name in Latin, Francis. This simple request showed how he lived, focusing on his religion and helping others, not on being powerful, or having many things. It is very rare for a pope to be buried outside Vatican City. The last pope buried outside was Leo XIII, over 100 years ago, in 1903. So, Pope Francis is the first pope since then to be buried outside Vatican City. He is also the first pope in more than 300 years to be buried in the Basilica of St. Mary Major. His choice makes his final resting place special and different. Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, an important person in the church, led the special service. He stood in front of the big crowd and the simple box. He spoke clearly about Pope Francis. Cardinal Re shared important things about the Pope's life and work. He reminded everyone that Pope Francis touched people's minds and hearts. This means he had a strong effect on what people thought and felt about their religion and the world. The cardinal also said that Pope Francis always wanted to build bridges, not walls. This simple idea showed that the Pope wanted to help people, groups, and countries connect and understand each other instead of being far apart or fighting. He worked hard for peace when he was Pope. The service followed the old and serious ways of the Catholic Church for a funeral. There were many prayers said and sung. People read from the Bible to give comfort and hope. Smoke from incense went up into the air, which is a tradition in these services. Special church music played, making the day feel very serious. People listened very carefully to the words spoken about Pope Francis. They thought about his kindness, gentle smile, and how he helped others, especially those who did not have much. The plain wooden box showed how Pope Francis chose to live and lead in a simple way. The feeling in St. Peter's Square was very quiet and respectful. People were sad that he died, but they also seemed thankful for the Pope's long life and his work for the Church. Many people looked very sad. In the big crowds were regular people from Rome and visitors who traveled far. Important leaders from many different countries were also there. Presidents, prime ministers, and royal people sat near the front, but they were part of the bigger crowd sharing this sad time. Everyone watched and listened together as the Church said its final goodbye to Pope Francis. The service was a time to think about his work and his important message of kindness, peace, and understanding in the world. It showed how many people felt close to him before the service ended. Rome says goodbye. After the funeral, Pope Francis's coffin was carried through Rome in the Pope Mobile, a special car. Thousands of people stood in the streets, some crying, some clapping. The streets were full of people waiting quietly. The journey passed famous places like the Colosseum, an old and important building known everywhere, and the Tiber River, a famous river in Rome. In some parts of the city, the streets were very narrow. It looked like the people standing there could almost touch the car. This sometimes happened before when Pope Francis traveled in St. Peter's Square to say hello to people. Many people watching were very sad. You could see tears in their eyes as the car with the box went by. It was their last chance to say goodbye and thank Pope Francis for his work. It was a sign of respect and thanks to the Pope. The clapping followed the car as it went through the city. The feeling in Rome that day was quiet and respectful. People were sad, but they also wanted to show their love for the Pope. They watched together as the city said its goodbye. The journey showed how much people cared about him. Everyone watched as the Pope Mobile took the Pope away from the Vatican area. Finally, the journey ended. The Pope Mobile arrived at the Basilica of Saint Mary Major. This big old church was the place Pope Francis chose to be buried. It was outside the Vatican walls, in the city of Rome. The Pope's box was brought here, ready for the last part of the goodbye. Finally, he was buried in Saint Mary Major as he wished. Important people at the funeral. Many world leaders came to Rome to say goodbye. US President Donald Trump, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Prince William from the UK. Over 250,000 people attended, showing how much Pope Francis was loved. Remembering Pope Francis. Pope Francis was known for helping the poor, encouraging peace, protecting the environment, making the church more welcoming. His simple life and kindness touched millions. Francis's death sets in motion the process of selecting a new pope through an election known as a conclave, which typically takes place between 15 and 20 days after a pope's death. The College of Cardinals, the church's most senior officials, will be summoned to Rome to take part in the secretive vote. In this case, 135 cardinals, those aged under 80, will be eligible to take part. They will be shut in the Vatican until they reach an agreement, cut off from communicating with the outside world, in a process that can take days. The outcome will set the direction of the Church, possibly for decades. The Pope appointed cardinals from a broader range of geographic and theological backgrounds than some of his successors, which could make the outcome of the process even more difficult to predict than usual. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you for learning with us. Pope Francis's story teaches us about kindness, humility, and love. What's your view on Pope Francis' legacy? Let's discuss in the comments. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more clear English lessons. See you next time on Go English Stories.